Yes.
Good evening, friends, and welcome to Child Advocates San Antonio's Voices of Child Welfare panel as part of DreamWeek. We are so excited to have you all watching at home live or later on through the recording. My name is Allison Martinez, and I'm the Vice President of Programs at Child Advocates San Antonio. And it is my pleasure to moderate our first conversation tonight. So we have two great speakers tonight that I would love to have introduce themselves. Judge, would you like to introduce yourself first?
Yes, I am Lorena Rummel. I was a judge of a district court, and so I'm going to be talking about some of that at criminal district court. I am currently a prosecutor with the DA's office, and it's in my involvement as a judge and my involvement as a prosecutor that I will be discussing how it affects child victims and how it affects individuals in care.
Thank you. And Amanda, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hello, my name is Amanda Stagen. I'm a licensed professional counseling associate with Jewish Family Service here in San Antonio. And I'm here to talk about the importance of mental health in the foster care system for children who are in care currently.
Thank you, Amanda. So Judge, the first question is for you. Can you give us some of your background working with children in care, both from the perspective of a DA and also as a judge?
Okay, I've been involved in criminal trial for the majority of my career. I have over 25 years when you combine my experience as a judge and my experience as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney. My involvement with the children in care is as a prosecutor, I was assigned to a specialty unit that dealt with violence in families, violence to children. That included sexual assault cases, that also included, always on the felony level, it also included injury to children, all the way through injury to children death cases. So my involvement was in trial of those cases. As a judge, my involvement shifted a little bit in that they were now witnesses testifying in court, and I was the judge presiding over those cases as opposed to the prosecutor trying the cases. Also, as a judge, I was responsible for a specialty court known as the Esperanza program. It stands for HOPE. It's required in all counties of our size, over 200,000. And it focused on women that have, typically it was drug addictions. They had felony priors. They were on probation for a felony offense. But we learned that almost all our participants had been victims themselves. They had been trafficked on the street, and that is why they had prostitution felony cases, theft cases, burglary habitation cases, because since they were victims themselves, you know, they had been trafficked, meaning not always your traditional trafficking. It could be trafficking in the sense that they were performing sexual acts for somebody else's economic gain. Could have been their parents, could have been a pimp, could have been their drug dealer. But because of that, they self-medicated with drugs. They became addicted to drugs, and to pay for that addiction, to pay for those drugs, they resolved to being criminals themselves. And that's why it would be theft offenses, prostitution offenses, burglary of habitation offenses, always offenses in which they could get money. So what I did as a judge of that program is we tried to deal with their addiction. But in order to deal with their addiction, we had to deal with their underlying trauma. Mm. And the involvement with the CPS system is because since they had such significant trauma in their lives and because of their livelihood, they always had children. Mm-hmm. And the majority of my participants had their children taken away and they were in some form of CPS custody. Some of my participants were working with the court system to maintain custody or to regain custody of their children. So I would work with the parents of the children, sometimes just to mend relationships. Sometimes their children have now grown and they are no longer in CPS care. but I worked closely with those women, and it was always to mend their relationship with their children. And if they were still in CPS care, we would work closely with the caregivers to try to build a relationship with the women. So that is my involvement, either as a prosecutor, as a witness, my children were in care, or as a judge. And I can go into more depth, but I'm sure you want to turn it over to Amanda at this point. Not sure.
Well, actually, I have one more question for you, kind of along the same lines, but what did you think was the most important piece in supporting those children? Like in the cases that you worked with, did you see kind of a theme, different areas where you knew that those kids were being supported and that it was going to be a successful case?
Well, in the cases when I was a prosecutor, you needed to gain trust with those children or they would not testify for you. And if the children had been taken out of their home because of sexual abuse, they didn't have a lot of trust in anybody, certainly not in adults. So it was very important that I gained their trust, that I worked with their caregiver. And it was extremely important that they felt like they were being listened to, that they had some kind of structure and stability, that they could have some trust in another adult. And I was the prosecutor, or I couldn't work with them because they were removed from their homes, either because of sexual abuse or neglect that led to, maybe it wasn't in their family that the abuse was occurring, but they weren't being watched. So it was other individuals. I also dealt with injury to child cases on the felony level. So we're talking some serious injury.
Right.
Sometimes it was the parents, sometimes it was caregivers, but almost always those children were in CPS custody as well, because the parents, obviously, if they were injuring them, they needed to be in care, or if they were being neglected or abused and access was given to other adults to injure them. One of the worst cases I had is that the child was no longer verbal. So I had to deal with the caregivers who took on so much to treat these children, because it's not just like taking a regular foster child. This is a foster child that has trauma.
Right.
And so I had to work with the children either as witnesses or, in that scenario where they were victimized and hurt so badly, I was working very closely with the caregivers, just making sure that we were a voice for these children.
Right. You hear, I mean, just time and time again, it's always like building that trust with these kiddos, and also that they have that one connection with a caring adult who's looking out for them and making sure that their needs are being met, after they've been through trauma and moving forward throughout their life. Thank you, Judge. So Amanda, as a therapist, can you expand upon just how critical mental health services are for children in foster care?
Absolutely. And it goes right along with what Judge was saying, about building trust, about trying to provide them some sort of stability. So the first thing I really want to touch on are some statistics that I found, because it really puts a number to the impact of mental health in this population. So actually, I pulled something from a 2014 mental health task force from CASA, that children in the foster care system experience mental illness at a rate almost 30% greater than the average population of children in Texas. The second statistic that I've got from the American Academy of Pediatrics in 2018 is that children in the foster care system are 7 times more likely to experience depressive symptoms and 5 times more likely to experience anxiety symptoms. And we know that when youth are taken from their homes and they're put into foster care, they're often removed from their homes because of neglect, because of physical abuse, sexual abuse, substance use. Something is going on that's harming them, and we have to remove them from their homes. And although we're removing them from a harmful situation, it can be traumatic for them because they're in a new environment. And this can lead to symptoms of anxiety, depression, trust issues, communication issues, behavior issues. And these children don't know how to cope with these big, complicated feelings that they're having. So then they're put into care and they may be moved around from home to home, school to school. They've got different families, they've got different friends, depending on what areas they're being moved to. Their lives, in a sense, are being uprooted multiple times in a short period of time. So they don't always have a sense of stability. They don't always feel trustful of adults. They don't always feel safe. And this can exacerbate those existing mental health issues that they're already having. And it creates stress for the child and also stress for the foster families that they're staying with. So bringing in how important mental health services are, it provides those children with another trusting adult, another caring adult that wants to be in their lives and help them. And they're provided with a safe, non-judgmental space to process their emotions, process their traumatic experiences, to have someone who will still be there when they share trauma, when they share upsetting things, that says, you know what, you can tell me any of these things. I'm okay. You're safe now. And I'm still going to be here. I'm going to help you work through these. I'm not going to leave you. Counseling also provides an opportunity for these youth to learn really valuable, healthy coping skills to deal with any of their symptoms, to get through difficult moments or work through that past trauma. And it prepares them for the future too, because we all know that life it's not always smooth. So when we have difficult times, they're going to have these skills. They're going to have the support system to use in the future. It also prepares them to build trust and to build resilience in themselves and trust in other people. It teaches them how to communicate with others about how they're feeling, about their needs, their boundaries. And in this sense, this is where it helps their foster families, because we can all work together to say, you know what, how is the communication going? How can we improve it? What words are we using? Are they hurtful? Does this make somebody uncomfortable? And just make the child feel heard and say, you know what, these people are here for me. They're willing to change. I'm willing to change with them, to just create a more positive environment for them. So we really just want to make the children feel supported and make them feel like they have a strong support system. And most of all, I think that the most important part of being in mental health services is to give these children a sense of pride in taking care of their health, their mental health, and the importance of loving themselves, even though they've gone through all of these things, because sometimes that impacts their self-esteem, how they view themselves. And to say, you know what, you've gone through these things, you may feel it this way, I validate your feelings, but we're going to work towards a more positive view of yourself, and I'm going to be here for you.
Thank you, Amanda. I love that message, just of giving them the tools to be able to cope. Having those coping skills is so important. And then, yes, a message of self-love. And I think just that support, letting them know that what they're going through is normal, and you're there to support them. Their therapist is there to support them and to help them kind of go on this journey to healing. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So my next question is going to be kind of for both of y'all. So what is one piece of advice that each of you have for the community watching at home? So Judge, I don't know if you wanted to go first.
Speak out. There's requirements. If you see abuse in the classroom, the teacher needs to speak out. They're required by law. That's, part of being a teacher. But there's no requirement for anybody in the community. And so if you see a situation and you think a child's being harmed, speak out, get involved. CPS doesn't always need to be involved, but I think, it takes a it takes a village to raise a family. And I think the community can be more involved. During COVID, there were children that if they weren't going to school, they weren't getting fed. And it doesn't have to be that way. These children are young, and if they're not getting their needs met through their homes, there are other services that are out there. There are many immigrant children. My daughter is, one of my daughters is a teacher, and she teaches English as a second language in another city, not Spanish. It was mostly kids from Afghanistan, Vietnam, all over the world, but a lot of them were children from, countries in conflict. And their parents did not know of a lot of the services that our society does offer. So it was her job, and the schools got involved, but they made sure those kids were the ones that not only got Christmas gifts, you can't just do it once a year. They received coats when it was wintertime. They received shoes. They received backpacks. There's so many organizations that are out there that will help people in need that maybe their parents don't know about. Maybe their parents are doing the best they can, but I think the community needs to get involved. So that would be my piece of advice.
I think that's a great message. I think it's just asking for help. San Antonio has so many resources and so many people that are willing to help out. But you just have to be able to, be brave and ask for help. Or if you see a family struggling, make sure that you ask them, like, can I help you? Is there anything that you need? Amanda, what do you think? What advice do you have for the community that's watching right now?
I agree with what Judge said about, getting involved with the community. Know the resources that are out there. And if you see something that might be concerning, say something. That's the most important piece that you have. And the last thing that I have also is for everyone to take care of their health, whether it's physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, because when we take care of our own selves, we're better able to advocate, support, and help others.
Yeah, that's so true too. Taking care of yourself. You can't really help somebody else if you're not taking care of yourself. The other thing I just also wanted to add is calling CPS if you have any concerns. That doesn't mean that the kids are going to get removed. It also kind of opens up a door for resources for the family to get help as well. So I think sometimes that's a myth that's out there, is if you call CPS, the kids are going to get taken away. But that's not always the case. They have other resources that they can help the families with. Well, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us this evening. And thank you for all that you've done in the community, helping families and kids. Did y'all have any other parting words or anything else that you wanted to share before we go on to the next panelist? Nothing?
I think it is amazing the families that step up that will help the CPS children. That takes an amazing heart, and I have seen it time and time again with, I said, the different levels of involvement that I've had. And when you said calling CPS doesn't always result in the kids being taken away, you're absolutely right. I've had situations where, because I would have to review these records, and the general public doesn't see this, but I would see situations where CPS was called and offered help to so many families that otherwise that help would not have been offered. I mean, CPS wasn't necessarily called because they thought the child was abused. Sometimes CPS is called because they think a child's being neglected because they're dirty or they're hungry. And all it did is they realized those were loving parents. It just connected them to resources.
Right.
And then the parents that get involved when children are eventually taken away because of their backgrounds and what the child's going through, those parents are angels on earth. I've seen parents that have taken in children that have been sexually abused. That is a whole lot of problems that they're willing to deal with. I've seen parents that have taken children that are physically abused, and those children, sometimes they get them, they're nonverbal and they're not walking, and they mend them and care for them and love them. And it's just amazing how wonderful society can be. We all see the bad, And we see on the news all of the bad. There are so many wonderful people out there, and I'm appreciative of that every day.
I agree. Thank you guys so much. Next up, we have Miss Angela White.
Hello, and Alison, I'm just going to say thank you as well. Lorena Rommel, Judge Rommel, and Amanda, thank you so much for your time tonight. Lorena, I have the utmost respect for you. I've been in Lorena's courtroom and she is a fair and unequivocal judge and has always been a pleasure. So I really appreciate you and everything you've done. And you're right, there are wonderful people in the world. I'm going to shout out CASA in the midst of this and all our lovely volunteers that, you know, step in and do that and help. So that was a great segue. Thank you, Judge, for that. Thank you so much, Amanda, for stepping in. I know Ryan was meant to be here, so thank you so much for being so eloquent at the last minute and stepping in. And of course, thank you to Alison, our VP of programs over here. CASA could not do it without you. So thank you so much, ma'am. Now, I am feeling a bit like Oprah Winfrey at the moment because I get to introduce our new state representative who has just the most amazing story. And I was going to say, you know, and it's Representative Josie Garcia, welcome and thank you for being here. And I was going to say we have in common that we were both in the foster system, but after that, I'm feeling very lame because all the things this representative has done is just incredible. So I am very much interested in your story. I think we need you to come off mute, Representative. I don't know if you still don't know you're on mute. Hi. And just newly elected. She's a veteran. I'm not going to tell you all the things because she's going to tell you that. I'm going to go to the end of my notes I have for you. And that says you will continue to advocate for those who need you the most. Veterans, my husband was South African vet, so I feel you. Children impacted by foster care, retirees and working families who need better jobs and affordable housing so we cease to undermine poverty and use that as a reason. So Representative Josie Garcia, thank you so much for joining us. You are very busy at the moment, so delighted that you're here.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So your story, as I just kind of mentioned, is absolutely remarkable. Can you share a little bit with our audience on Facebook tonight?
Sure, absolutely. Thank you so much for such a wonderful introduction. You know, this is a very humbling journey for me. You know, I first entered foster care at 8 years old, and it was not in Texas, it was in Florida during that time. And to be honest, the type of care I was in was actually more akin to juvenile incarceration. And, you know, to be incarcerated in a jail cell for all intents and purposes as an 8-year-old, simply because I didn't know where my mommy was, you know, was something that was, you know, very traumatic. I can remember it just like it was yesterday, and I'm 45 years old now. That was my first stint in the foster care system, and I spent the large majority of my life basically being taken and given to whoever would take me. I unfortunately had drug addicted parents. I lived largely with my mother. My mother experienced some severe hardships, was a victim of many horrid things herself. She was a victim of trafficking, and you know, I witnessed a lot of these things. And it wasn't until probably, I will say honestly, about 3-4 years ago that I found healing in sharing my story, because like so many of us that have experienced these horrors and hardships, like we don't want nobody to know the things that we've gone through, because not only have we been told we were less than, sometimes by those who are supposed to love us most, but we're also treated as less than. Treated as throwaway children. And it's so, you know, I say funny as the word, but, you know, the term trash bag kid, I was that. Like literally all of my life's possessions would fit into just a regular black trash bag, and it wasn't a full trash bag. You could spin it around and you had like this much of a little bubble left, you know, of, you know, your worldly possessions. And sometimes we had no idea where we would sleep. Sometimes I had no idea what type of boogeyman would, show his ugly head. And experiencing all that, I always thought that I would never be anything. I spent a lot of my life, trying to find my path. And, wasn't until I went to 13 different schools that I hit high school in Tennessee. Now, Tennessee, how did I end up there? I had an aunt there who lived out in the middle of the country. Where I come from, we roamed the streets a lot. We were street kids. We were always out, and that's how I lived. Well, in Tennessee, there were no streets. There were no anything. There were cow pastures. And so my life as I knew it yet again was totally flipped upside down. In Tennessee, I experienced a lot of racial prejudice. I am biracial. And in 1990s Tennessee, to be a biracial person was still very taboo. I would be called horrid names. And again, then I experienced a lot of hardship based on my race. So not only did I not have parents who loved me, but then my skin color was an issue, or lack thereof, however you wanted, whichever way the angle came, and so it wasn't until I signed up at 16 years old to join the Air Force that I felt a true sense of belonging to something. I wasn't nothing anymore. I have a uniform now. When people see me in uniform, they greet me in a positive way. I'm not the POS, the trash bag kid, the half breed, the person that's going to be a crackhead like their mother. I wasn't all of these horrible things anymore. Now I was an airman. I was a soldier. I had standing. Well, the first thing I did as an airman was get custody of my 3-year-old brother. I was 19 years old when I got custody of my 3-year-old brother. I was stationed in Panama, South America, and then we traveled to Germany from there. And that was before I had my own children. He's now 28 years old, has his own family, and I'm so proud of him. But here I am now. I have 8 children in a blended family. I've been mother to many more because I've taken in so many children whose parents wouldn't take care of them, didn't want them, got mad at them and kicked them out of the house. Like, you name it, I would take them in. Because I can never for the life of me imagine a child that I could affect being treated like they had nothing and nobody. So for the sake of not going on and being super preachy, I want to say that it is a complete honor to be a Texas State representative to this day, because as many of us know, children who are impacted like I was, we oftentimes don't even see our 18th birthday, much less the success of being a Texas State representative. So my whole purpose is to further advocate. This is not for me. This is not a celebration that I have of my success. This is a celebration I have of true representation for our CASA kids, for our CWAP kids, for our kids who have been told that they will never amount to anything. Guess what? The joke's on you, society. Here we are, and our voices matter now more than ever. So this is the perfect opportunity for me to invite all of you, anybody who has been impacted by the system, those of you judges and attorneys and ad litems and child advocates who the stress, the mental stress, anguish, the lack of pay, the heartbreak because you can only do so much. I'm here for you because I know you are the unsung heroes, and I'm standing here right now. If it wasn't for a woman who was not related to me telling me that I was worth it, I would have never joined the Air Force.
Representative Garcia, I'm going to, I have my go-to phrase from, and now I stand as the president and CEO of CASA, not because that's, I'm a president and CEO, a bit like you. It's like, I want to do to give back to the child I was. And I think if we can authentically live in those spaces, one of the things I say a lot is where you start does not define where you finish. And it simply doesn't. And, even what you've shared so far, my adopted mother was alcoholic. So when you don't admit that, as I went to an Alpha home, which is where I met Judge Rommel, who was just, with us on screen. And, we have to overcome those things, and we can. But you set this up really nicely. I mean, it's walking into the people around us that can support us. They're not necessarily our family. But if you reach out for help, it only takes one person. And Kathy Fletcher runs Voices for Children, she's a friend. Her thing is, it only takes one person to be crazy about a child to make all the difference. And I was smiling to myself when you said you've been mother to many other kids. My home is where all the kids came and stayed for a couple of nights. One stayed for 4 months. So, they could get the things, because you can't walk away from that. So you touched my heart very, very much. So talk to me a little bit more about this lady, this woman who supported you and said, you know what, girl, you've got this. You are worthy. Go in the Air Force. Talk to me about her.
Yes, unfortunately, when I was in Tennessee, I did live with an aunt who was a severe alcoholic. So I can definitely relate to that. Also, not only that, but she made it her life's mission to keep me down. She had a daughter who was around the same age as I was, who would do no wrong, and anything I did was always wrong. I excelled at sports. That was never good enough. Because I wasn't good at books. I wasn't good at studying. I wasn't good at, homework, but I was a good athlete. That wasn't good enough because, unfortunately, fortunately, my cousin made a lot better grades than I did. And so that was kind of like my measure of, purpose from my family at that time, the family I had. Well, the town we lived in was a very, very tight town, a small town. My graduating class was about 60 people. And so everyone knew who my aunt was. She unfortunately was the town drunk. And out of the grace of a boyfriend I had in high school, I became really close to his mother. And even after we broke up, she knew the life I was living at home and stayed very close to me. When it came time for me to join the Air Force, she is the one who took me to my appointments in Memphis, Tennessee to get my physical for my MEPS. It's called MEPS, military evaluation personnel, something to that effect. And she's the one who took me there. I had a whole list of requirements of items I would need. We were very impoverished. My aunt didn't have money. I didn't have any, barely a week's worth of clothes, much less anything else. So it was I call her mama to this day. Her name is Tina. She's the one who went and bought all of my needs and all of the things that I would need to join the Air Force in basic training. She's the one who came and watched me graduate from basic training. And through my life, I've always had an issue with staying in contact with people. When you move, go to 13 different schools before you're even, 15, 14 years old, you kind of learn not to get attached to people. You know that people who love you and care for you are temporary. And so I lost contact with her for many, many years. And I'm so grateful that because of social media, we've been able to reconnect and she's been able to see where I'm at today because, she really made an impact for me at a time where I felt like I wasn't loved by anybody. And she showed me the love I need. And so I definitely attribute a lot of where I'm at today to her.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I think, so often we are taught we're not worthy as foster children. I grew up, I was 70% deaf till I was 7. And I grew up with my mum after that. When I had surgeries and things, my adopted mother saying, well, you've got nothing to say. Nobody wants to listen to you. You've got nothing to add. You've got no value. You're going to end up like your birth mother was. I had that a lot, on the streets and blah, 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 all the things. And it took my best friend's family, were my second family. And I actually got to see them 2 years ago and thank them face to face. So I see my best friend, but they're back in the UK. But to have that equivocal moment with them to say, I don't know if you knew, and I certainly didn't know at the time what that would mean to me later in life. But it's a really good message, I think, to share among children in the system today and children that have been, that people, you can lean into people. They are there for you and people want to help. You've got to have the vulnerability and courage to ask.
Absolutely. And I want to point out as well, I also had a best friend in high school who, me being biracial from New York, I was kind of like this, ooh, like, what are you? Let me, and she was somebody who was always really open and wanted to learn about me. And her name is Shannon, and her family also knew my aunt. I mean, it was a very small place, but like you said, sometimes you go and spend the night. Sometimes you spend a month or 2 or 3 or 4. And, I owe it to the O'Daniel family for allowing me to spend months at a time, not only sleeping on their couch, but they fed me, they clothed me, they, made sure I was okay. They even, gave me some words when, they didn't like the music I was listening to, or, just different things like that. But there are people that you come across in life that you don't realize that they're there for you. You really don't. And that, I know this speaks to the heart of all of you that provide love for these children that are impacted. It's thankless. A lot of times, we're coming from a situation where we have no parental guidance. None. We can go anywhere we want to. We could do everything we want to. We don't have to answer to nobody. But now here you come, you're giving us rules. You're telling us we can't go and hang out. We can't go on the block. We're not allowed to not go to school because we don't want to go, and those are hard pills to swallow,
Mhm.
So I can't say thank you enough for the work that you do, because I'm living testament, right? Miss
Right.
Angie's living testament. Your work is so worth it, and anything that I can do while here at the legislature to make sure that we're able to not only impact you all to be able to do your jobs, but also empower our youth that are impacted to use their voices. 2 years ago, I was not involved with politics. I was not involved with, political advocacy. I just cared. And I came to this Texas state capitol and I advocated in support of bills that were important to me. And then here I am. This was not something that I planned. So, please use your voice. Your voice is so valuable. Your voice is more valuable than any degree that we can ever purchase. And I'm not trying to diminish a degree, because of course we need those too. But, the School of Hard Knocks, there's credit to that.
There is, and don't be knocking degrees. I'm in the middle of a PhD. I swear it's killing me.
Oh, trust me, I'm with you.
It's called a terminal degree for a reason, is all I have to say about this. So one of the other things I've been reading your bio, and I said I do feel like Oprah Winfrey because I think you should be on the Oprah Winfrey show. Tell us about all your deployments in the Air Force, and tell us about how that and the discipline of the military, actually, because you're right. Sometimes when your kids, nobody cares enough, you're doing what the heck ever, and our teams don't want people telling them what to do, because then there's some fear there as well. So talk to me about going into the military, how that discipline was impactful, and tell everybody exactly what you've done in the military. This was not a stay-at-home military, Miss Garcia, let me tell you, people. So go ahead.
So when I joined the military, when I enlisted, I was on a delayed enlistment program. I signed up when I was 16 years old. So when I graduated high school at 17, I joined and went to Lackland Air Force Base. And to be honest with you, I was a military buff, kind of. Whenever I would get punished, I would read the Cyclopedia Britannica. So I would always read about the wars and various things. So I went into the military with this preconceived notion of, sir, yes, sir, and, just being loud and, militant. And that was really the worst thing I could have done. That was not, I should not, because that made me stand out. And, they ended up picking on me, but they picked on me in a way that made me the youngest person in our flight of 650 women. And I became the one person who led the entire flight of 50 plus women as the youngest. So where some could say, oh, that was awesome. It wasn't awesome, because then you have 49 women who hate you because you were in charge. But at the same time, what I did find was, once we had another, leader from another flight get recycled and punished down into our flight, that's when they stood behind me, because they were like, nobody else is going to come in here and take over our flight. So that was one fun thing. I went into the dental career field. that was not chosen, that was assigned to me. And I became a dental assistant, dental hygienist, dental surgery technician. And in that realm, I was stationed in Panama, South America, where, well, Central America, where I did a joint tour with the Army, Air Force, and did a tour on an Army post. And while I was there, I had the opportunity to do some missions to Ecuador and Peru, I believe it was. Forgive me off the top of my head. There were two little countries that we went to in there. And from there, I went to Germany. I was stationed in Germany for 3 years, where I served in Africa, Cameroon, Africa, on a medical humanitarian mission. Now, on this mission, I had just given birth to my first son. He was only a couple months old when I had to deploy. And it was so rewarding and heartbreaking at the same time. I spent a lot of time with the natives that were there, the town folks, the village folks, because I really wanted to be a part of the culture. This was stuff I was reading about in the encyclopedias, or I was watching on National Geographic, and now here I am right in the middle of it. So that was super humbling for me to be a part of that medical humanitarian mission. And this is some of the diplomatic stuff that we do in the military that a lot of people don't know about. They think that we just go to war, and that is the furthest from the truth. We save countless lives in countries that wouldn't have access to just the basics of necessities. From there, I was stationed in San Antonio, Texas, which I chose to raise my babies there. I love Texas and everything about it. And during my tour at Lackland Air Force Base, I got stationed there 2001. A couple months later, life as we know it changed when 9/11 happened.
Mhm.
Now, keep in mind, I joined the military to be military before 9/11. When 9/11 happened, we were legitimately military. Everything was heightened focus, heightened sense of awareness. You know, you couldn't just enter the base anymore. And this was a terrifying time for our country, terrifying time. And it was the most pride I've ever felt to be able to serve our country in uniform was after the 9/11 attacks. I still discuss that a lot today when people ask me, why did you do this? Why would you run? And I asked them, I said, I want you to think about 9/11. Where were you at? Do you remember where you were at 9/11?
Absolutely, I do. And I was in the UK, and I can tell you where I was sat. Never mind where I was at. Watching the television as my husband had flown in 24 hours earlier from the Twin Towers. I
Now,
remember.
a week afterwards, 2 weeks afterwards, a month afterwards, 6 months afterwards, a year afterwards, when you would see the American flag, you would have such pride. That's not what we feel today.
Right.
We don't have that same sense of pride and love and just ready to have each other's backs. That's why I'm here.
You know, I'm not going to argue with you about anything that you go up in that house to debate, because you just need to go at it like that and nobody's saying no to you. So we can, that's amazing. And thank you for your service. I wanted people to know a bit more about you. The other thing though, and I'm going to come and help you, by the way, in this nonprofit that you co-founded, because I think it's brilliant. So need volunteers, I'm in. Talk to me about your book. You published author.
Oh.
I did my research.
Thank you so much. Well, when I retired from the military in 2014, you know, I spent my entire adult existence as Sergeant Garcia. To hear my first name was like nails on a chalkboard, but I wanted to be an author. So I adopted a little pen name and, you know, thought I was going to go and be this author, but it kind of backfired. I ended up writing the book as myself anyways. And the book it's a compilation of the lives of those who have served in the military from the Rio Grande Valley and Eagle Pass. Now, how did I fall into that? I'm a firm believer that a lot of things in our lives are preordained and set. You just have to know where to go for it. And I met this gentleman who was a lawyer in San Antonio, who was a real big history buff, and I was a history buff. And he said, you know, I want to write this book. And I said, I want to be a writer. What do you want? And he was like, I have boxes and boxes full of just historical documentation. I'm talking letters home to loved ones, draft paperwork, uniform tags, all this type of stuff that he had compiled. And he said, I want to make a book with this. And so I sat down and was able to compile a first edition. This was like 8-9 years ago, of warriors of Maverick County. They're Eagle Pass soldiers, and some of them were Mexican soldiers. Some were Black Seminoles, who were all part of South Texas military history. And so I am published under my God-given name, which is Jolene. And I know somebody's going to be singing the Dolly song. That's why I'm Josie, by the way, because every time I
was
say
so close.
Jolene.
I was so close in my head to starting it, but I chose not to.
So it's easier. So I save a couple minutes on an introduction being Josie. So yes, that was one of my a very remarkable time for me to be able to provide that. And I just found out that I can have it archived here in the Texas State Legislature in the Capitol. And I'm going to be arranging something to hopefully bring Mr. Munter, who was the lawyer that worked on this with me, and his wife, Judy. It was their lifelong project, and I would love nothing more than to bring them here, see it archived, and then work on the next edition. Because when we did that book, social media was not what it is right now. So imagine what we can do with the advances in DNA technology, social media, and all of that. So I'm really excited to see what we could do for the future.
So for everybody, now you know why I feel like Oprah Winfrey. And we're not finished yet. So the co-founding of Uniting America Outreach, okay, delivering over 9,000 meals to San Antonians. You raised over $50,000 just for food, clothing, hygiene products. You took over to Mexico during the crisis at the border. I mean, it's just fantastic stuff. And, from literally, and we've only met tonight. So for anybody listening, we have never met before, but I can't imagine not knowing you now. I think there's the speech from your heart. It's such an openness to just want to support and help people. It's very tangible and it's very real to me. And I hope people who are hearing this on Facebook are feeling the same way. You're also married to a veteran who has a Purple Heart. I mean, I am Oprah Winfrey at the moment. So talk to me though. You have 8 children, 2 adult sons. So let's talk about the kiddos. Age, where do they start and where do they finish? And what is the blend? What do we have all together that you are also looking after while you're in the state capitol and writing books and raising money and all the things?
Well, I have 3 adult sons.
Okay.
So I have my 23-year-old son, Adrian. I have my 19-year-old twin sons who will be 20 in April. They both have autism. They're Alex and Amari. They're phenomenal. If you talk to them about anything WWE, wrestling, Marvel comics or Pokemon, they'll be your best friend.
Okay. I remember that.
I'm also blessed and grateful to have my stepson, Kai, who's 16, my stepson, Angel, who's 14, my stepdaughter, Tessa, who's 9, my son, our son, Romero, is 8. And then we have a son, Reese, who's our baby. He's 6. But we also raised my nephew, Emilio, and he's 20 now. He just graduated high school and is going to college. And, we couldn't be more proud of our kids. And believe it or not, with the exception of my stepdaughter, they all live in the house with us. We have a 6-bedroom home, thank you God. And they all live with us, and my stepdaughter's there with us every other weekend. Her mother is actually works for CPS. I don't want to say too much, but she works in the CPS system, and she has really opened my eyes to a lot of the struggles with our CWAP kids. The work that they do is just phenomenal as well, and being a co-parent who gets the calls, sometimes in the middle of the night that says, hey, I have to go to the hotel to sit with, these children that are pending placement. It's just I'm so happy and grateful that my husband and I are available to be a resource for her to be able to do this work and not have to worry about our daughter while she does it. And it's such a blessing. I've given birth to 5 children myself. You know, those are my five boys that I have. But they're all my kids. I hate saying my stepchildren or whatever. They're all my babies. And believe it or not, anything after 3 kids, it's all the same insanity. So families, bring them back.
Canada. I have 2 stepchildren. They're called my bonus children. I have
Yes.
a bonus son and a bonus daughter. And
Yes,
I am
absolutely.
hysterically, my bonus daughter lives in England and I am a Texas mama. So I'm very confusing because, as you can hear, I'm not Texan. So there's an interesting dynamic.
I wouldn't be able to do any of this without my husband.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in a very unique position to where my husband is one of my biggest cheerleaders. I have a very strong, you know, personality, and you know, I'm so super bubbly, and he's not at all. You know, he's not too much of a bubbly guy, but he is super understanding. He's a piece of my brain, if I may, and it's because there's so much that he researches for me. Like, you know, he knows the things that I love and that I'm interested in. And all 31 times last year, I told him that we were going to Ciudad Acuña, Mexico, to go save people. He was like, again? Call me when you're on your way back. I got deported. We got somebody else deported. We had somebody that came to help us. It was, we almost swam across the river. Lord, I would never break the law, by the way. I am a representative and I would never break the law. But I'm just trying to paint a picture of how intense things were, you know, at the border at that time. And this was last August when we're watching on TV, you know, that we have tens of thousands of people at the border, and where some people are like, oh, we're being invaded. You know, I was like, no, there are women and children and babies down there. Let me tell you what we discovered on our very first day when we went to Ciudad Acuña, Mexico. These women were walking on foot in chanclas, flip-flops, from Chile, through the jungles of Panama, which is one of the most dangerous jungles in this entire universe. These women are walking by themselves with their babies carrying them. Now, I want you to think for 1 second what they endured on that trip. Not one time, not 2 times, regularly on this trip. Horrors beyond our imagination, but they still did it. And you know what? Every day they smiled. Every single day they smiled. And that's what kept us going back 30 more times. Because even though we had very little, we were affecting people who had suffered so much.
And again, a little while feeling like Oprah Winfrey. So I'm going to come all the way back around. If your husband ever wants to be a CASA, tell him we're available for him to be an advocate. You can come and talk to us. So
I'm scared I'm going to bring more kids home.
I don't have an issue with that.
So we could have about 2 or 3 more.
There you go. So all the way back around to the joy we have in you being with us on this panel today for DreamWeek, for the children that we serve, for the child that you were and have continued to do. If you had a message for anybody at home, either thinking of being a foster parent, who is foster child, who is reunifying, working on reunification of parents, which Judge Rommel did so well in, the support that we need, what would you say to them? And what do you think this community can do better to serve these children more effectively, and the parents and anybody who needs services? So a few questions in there.
Thank you. Well, I think what I'd like to focus on first is, this is DreamWeek. We just experienced Martin Luther King holiday. You know, we experienced biblical plagues with COVID-19. We've experienced a lot of hardship in the last couple of years. But for those children that are impacted, you are the dream. And, you know, not to sound cheesy and cliche, because trust me, I've been one of those people that's like, oh yeah, I'm the dream. Okay. Here we are. You are the dream. Everything that you can be, you will be. And you don't have to wait for somebody to tell you that. You don't have to wait for somebody to make you do something. It can be the smallest, the faith of a mustard seed is what the biblical verse says. All you have to do is believe in yourself, the just tiniest bit, and you can achieve anything you want to. Another thing, don't be afraid. Regurgitating our trauma sucks. It hurts. I've made therapists cry. I swore I would never go back. But regurgitating your trauma is healing for you. I went through a long time of really having very bad feelings for my mother because of the life that I lived. She passed away about 10 years ago. My regret is that I didn't understand now the way that I do now when she was here. So for those of you parents who have lost your children to CASA, to the system, who are having a hard time navigating this world, I forgive you, we forgive you, and we love you. And it's not too late. You could still change your lives. You could still get your babies back. You could still make such an impact in their lives. Because what's most important right now is the present. Yes, we can harp on all the negative, but as somebody who harped on the negative for over 40-something years, I've never been more free than to be at peace, to say that I love my mother despite all her traumas and despite everything that I went through as a byproduct. And for those of you who are thinking of reaching out to those of us who have been impacted in some way, yes, it's going to be terrifying. Yes, we're going to be the biggest pain in the butt possible. I'm watching my words. But we need you. We need you even when we tell you we don't. We need you when we tell you we don't want you. We still need you. So thank you so much for just stepping outside of yourself to love somebody else that you don't have to love. Please, if anybody would like to collaborate with me, reach out. My work is community work first, and mom, legislator, veteran, military, all of that after. My kids are learning from watching this advocacy, and just like other children, whether yours or not, are going to learn from watching your advocacy.
Okay, yeah, I'm just getting a little note in here that CASA don't remove children, CPS do. So just to correct you ever so slightly there, we support.
Oh, I'm sorry.
What
did I say?
It's okay. It's okay. I just don't want people on the other side of that.
CASA. No. I'm sorry. CASA are the advocates.
Yes, no. Yeah, I know you know it's passion. Sometimes we're just going so quickly. Representative, thank you so very much for being part of it today. I know we went through some of your history and we swayed a little bit away from foster care, but I don't believe we did. What we need to do is model to children in this system that you get to choose. You get to choose your relationships, you get to choose your path, and you get to choose who you want to be at the end of the day and how you show up. And you are a remarkable model for children who think, you know what, I'm never going to be anything like where I started. You can be anything and everything, you know, and I think forgiveness is for us as much as it is for other people, you know, and I didn't really forgive my alcoholic mother, and it was only when I worked at Alpha Home that I really got to understand the disease that it is and know that. So thank you for saying that. It's important for all of us to amplify the voices of children in care. I know you will continue to do that for us now in your position over there. We will come and visit with you when we're over there doing child advocacy. But just thank you for your time. Congratulations on the position. And we will be leveraging you a lot, I hope. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Please do. And then please also understand, it can be the little tiniest change. If there's a change in the law that you can think of that will affect the way we do business, affect your lives and the way you all do business, please reach out to our offices. We're available to you. And we really look forward to collaborating with CASA more in the future and with our children that are impacted. I hope to see you here in my office. My office is your office. I'd love to host you for a legislative day, and have a wonderful week. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And now it's nearly 6:30. It is my absolute pleasure to bring Jennifer Crippen in to talk to us. She is a team manager over here at CASA. She has taught me so much about our children that are older in the system and the way she interacts with them. And I'm just delighted that she's going to moderate a conversation with some amazing young ladies that we have joining us that are and have been in the system but are now rocking and rolling the house. Hello, ladies. So good night from me. Jen, all yours.
Thank you so much, Angie. Thank you all for being here. And thank you so much for our panelists that has spoken so far. It's been so great. Your stories are wonderful. Your experiences are wonderful to hear. And so we really appreciate you taking the time to be here with CASA. And yes, I'm so excited that our next segment, we're going to have two wonderful young women with us to kind of talk about their experiences as well, their lived experiences. So I'm going to go ahead and let them introduce themselves to you, and then we will get going on some of the questions that we have. So Michelle, would you like to go first?
Hi, you guys. My name is Michelle Calleros. Hi, Ali. So I am 22 years old, and this is actually my last semester at Tamusa, and I'm studying international business management. I aged out at 18. I did the SIL program, and I stayed in the dorms until I was 21, and now I have my own apartment. I'm also working with foster and adopted youth on campus. I just got off work, so I'm like, sorry if I look a little crazy. And yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on your last semester, getting so close. Ali, you want to introduce yourself? Who looks like she's Michelle's biggest cheerleader. So that is awesome.
Well, she's one of my good friends, and we actually met when we were roommates in the dorms. But I'm Alizea. I'm a junior at Tamusa, and I'm studying communications with a minor in political science. I first came into the dorm around 2021, summer of 2021. And then that's when I started coming across more resources, meeting more friends like me, and it's just been such a blessing.
Great. Well, again, thank you both for being here. So we're going to kind of go into letting you tell your story of the system and your lived experience. And please know that feel free to tell as much as you feel comfortable with. We understand that there are some traumas there that you may not want to go into, and we are very respectful of that. So Michelle, if we can start out with, how long were you in foster care? If you want to start out with about what age you were when you first got into the system, what the circumstances looked like at that time. And then if you want to kind of talk about, how your case, that initial legal case, was resolved.
So I was taken away like a handful of times growing up, but like when I was younger, I had family who would take me, like my grandmother and stuff. But I was taken away at like 14, the end of like 14, turning 15. And it was because, well, my biological father, who I didn't even want contact with, was in prison anyways. And my stepdad, who I consider my dad, and my mom, they were both like heavily like drug addicts, and they were just like never there. So I don't know who, to this day I don't know who called CPS on us. It's usually like a petty family member or something, but I really don't know who it was. But they honestly just popped up one day and like saw like the situation, and then they were there like a week later with the officers, and we're like, y'all don't really have a choice, And I did go to like a foster home and like whatever, but it was like really bad. So I really just kind of was in like group homes, shelters, and like RTCs. And then when I aged out at 18, I was with my madrina for a little bit, my godmother a little bit. But my aunt was living her with her and she was a crackhead. And so it was like problems there too. So honestly, for a while, like I kind of just like did my own thing and like kind of thugged it. And at the time, my caseworker, even though I had aged out, was like still really, really close with me. And she was always like, like you can do big things. And I did not know that I could get free college until like I aged out. Like nobody really tells you that when you're like growing up. So the BCFS center downtown, I used to go there and meet with my PALS worker. And one day she told me before going to work, she was like, oh, come like check out this like event that we're having for college stuff. And at the time, like I like got myself enrolled in high school because basically, okay, long story short, I didn't really go to high school when I was in the system. So when I got out of care and turned 18, I enrolled myself in high school and I finished it in like a couple months. And then I started at Alamo. But after Alamo is when I went to that career fair thing for colleges. And I got to meet like the people that I work with now. And they were like, you can come live in the dorms. And that was perfect because I was kind of like staying in tellies and like with friends and like in my car at the time. So I got like into the dorms. And then, like I said, I lived there till I was 21. And then I'm now living by myself.
That's great. So during that time, did you still have some connection with your family? And then were your parents' rights eventually terminated?
Yeah, so my biological father's when he got out of prison, he had the audacity to come to a court hearing. Wild. So I was like, no, like I told the judge and the attorney to terminate his rights then. My stepdad, he was a heroin addict and he would like tell us that he loved us and he missed us, and every once in a while make it to a visit if he could pass a drug test, but really like they terminated his rights quickly too because they were kind of like you don't even make it to the visits. And like he would text my caseworker and be like, I'm not going to get clean, just tell them I love them, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then
He
my
knew it was too
mom,
big of a hill for him to.
and I still talk to him. Well, when I can find him, I still talk to him to this day, but I have to like go drive around the hood and like look for him. You know what I mean? So, and I haven't seen him in like a while, but like I do love him and care about him, but like as an adult, like he's not my like responsibility, you know?
Right. Yeah.
But my mom, like, she just signed her rights away. They weren't terminated. My mom, like, she wasn't a heroin addict. She did meth and she was, I don't know, she was just at a different point and she knew that she wasn't going to get me back like at that, you know what I'm saying? And it wasn't one of those things where like she told me before she did it, like we kind of talked, and I'm not going to lie, like it hurt my feelings a little bit at the time, but I was just like, like if you're not going to get clean, like there's no point in having this ongoing case of them trying to like reach out to you and get you to go to these classes and do all this extra to try and get me back if like you just confidently know like you're not going to do that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like no, I aged out, and so now I get like the full like tuition and fee waiver. I love, but yeah, but I talk to my mom now. My mom, it took me a long time to start talking to her again. Like it took me years to start talking to her again, but she was clean for like a year and a half and then was like, I've been clean for a while, and like reconnected with me like a couple years ago. And since then, like I've grown pretty close to my mom because she's not the person that she was like back then.
Yeah. And I'm sure it's interesting to see how your relationship and your roles in the relationship have changed as you've become older versus, we kind of look up to our parents when we're little, but then when that role kind of shifts and now you're looking at them saying, hey, I'm the responsible one now. I know what I need to do. And I'm sure that was a hard transition for you, but maybe could help you see a different perspective of what they were going through at that time.
No, I always like, as an adult, I'm like, I think about it and I'm like, I know her parents were the best either. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So like, sometimes it's just generational stuff.
It is. Unfortunately, we do see that a lot. It is. Well, thank you so much for sharing, for starting off. Ali, would you like to share with us a little bit of your story and how you entered the system?
So I entered the system when I was 4 years old. I had a 3-year-old sister and my brother was 9 months. And I remember we got called on because my mother's best friend was basically sleeping with my father. So, and it was also a very abusive relationship. They were also drug addicts, and it just wasn't a good place for really any child to grow up in. And my father was really just off the rails and stuff. And I got adopted when I was about 8. So I spent some time there, and me and my brother, we were actually separated. Me and my sister were attached at the hip growing up and stuff. And I forgot the other question. Sorry.
How was your case resolved? So you got adopted, but you
Got
said
adopted.
you guys were, your siblings are separated right from the beginning. Did you guys go to different placements?
So me and Zeta, my sister, we were in the same foster home, and then my brother was with a different family. And I think the reason it took so long for us to get adopted was because my grandparents wanted to come in, and they were calling up their family members saying, well, like, can anybody take these kids in? And I think it kind of dawned on them. They're like, okay, these are our grandkids. Like, we have to do this. And so I owe it to them, because without them, honestly, I really wouldn't know where I would be. But the drama did not stop there at all. So the family that my brother was with, they actually wanted to adopt him and take him to Colorado or something. And they would tell caseworkers like, oh, that grandmother's like too invested, or she's too this and that. And it's just like, okay, like, we're her kids, like, we're her kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got adopted.
Yeah. So did you were able to keep that relationship with your brother during that time, or did you guys kind of, did it?
Oh, no. He was a baby. Like, he was really, really young. So, I mean, it was just really crazy because he was so young, and I remember so well exactly everything that happened. The cops knocking on the door, my grandma's changing my brother in the den. And like, I already knew what was gonna happen because later on down the line, me and my sister had conversations and stuff. And I think I told my teacher about like not first grade, it was like kindergarten or pre-K, because I was going to Jaffa Elementary on the east side. And I remember one day my dad was just really whooping the hell out of my mom. And I went to school, and I remember hearing my mom say, she's going to tell the school, she's going to tell the school. So I don't know if that was like a sign to, go and ask for help and, like do something, because this guy's like crazy as hell. And then my sister ended up telling a counselor, and we're like 4 and 3 years old. And so if we can see these issues, and then we got called on because of the ex-best friend, doing all that slimy stuff. Me and my brother, we do have a relationship, not lately because he's very upset with me right now, because he's a 16-year-old boy who's dating and just doing all these things, and I have to run off this girl, so we're not speaking because of that. Me and
You
my
have
sister,
to be the big sister. That's your role, right?
he does not understand that. He does not get it. And I'm like, sir, you introduced her. You do not have her up in here like this. I'm sorry. I had a whole freaking hair curlers, a bandana on, a belt around my neck, my Doc Martens, running this girl off in like 2 minutes. It took me 2 minutes to get that little girl out. And then me and my sister we're really, really close. She's really like my best friend. So we would always match. She would wear like blue and I would wear pink of the same dress. And, like, it was really nice having somebody to lean on.
Yeah, I'm sure doing something like that you could go through together. Yes. So tell me a little bit more about your education experience while you were in care. I know, Michelle, you mentioned that you really didn't attend school. Was that because nobody was holding you accountable, or because you had multiple placements during that time? So what did it look like for you getting through that middle school and high school time period?
Me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm so sorry. Honestly, it was a little bit of everything because I was never bad in school. Like, I could skip all the classes and still show up and pass the exam with an A. Like, I've always been smart, but my attendance was really bad. Like, even before I got in CPS, like my freshman year, when I got into CPS, I had to do summer school because I didn't even go like my freshman year. And then like the rest of the years, okay, one, between like the 10 plus high schools that I went to, not all my credits would transfer. So like I would
Right.
get to new high school and they'd be like, well, we're not accepting that. Like she's still gonna have to retake that here. So I took like mad classes that I didn't need to take because I was just retaking stuff, you know?
Mhm.
Same thing with like electives, like they would offer it here, not offer it here. And then two, like I'm not gonna sit here and say like I wasn't kind of like a little bit bad when I was younger. And it got to the point where like there was one in my life where I was like, if my life is gonna be shitty anyways, it's gonna be shitty and I'm gonna be free. And so I was on the run a lot and I was like living with like friends, like people back then. And it sucks because they put a warrant out for your arrest. Like I know that's like stupid, but like they really do that. So like you can't even enroll yourself in school. I can't enroll myself in and you can't even enroll yourself until you're like 17, 18 in Texas anyways. So I wasn't even old enough. I didn't have none of my paperwork until I like got out of the system and my caseworker helped me like get my social security and birth certificate and ID and all this stuff.
Mhm.
So like it's not necessarily that I didn't want to go, because if I could have been like on the run and like enrolled myself in school, like I would have done that. But it just wasn't possible.
So when you were able to finally enroll yourself in school, did you have to have a whole kind of restart with study habits and things like that? I know you said it kind of came easy to you, but what did it look like with that accountability and like, I really have to like hunker down and just do it?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. When I first got to like I kind of call it the free world, like you know what I mean? Like
Mhm.
I tried a regular high school, but and I know you're gonna be like, oh my God, but I really mean this from the bottom of my heart. I did not grow up with bougie, like really bougie schools. Okay. And when I moved to my godmother's, who lives in like a predominantly like bougie military area, the school that I went to, first of all, was like, I was just, girl, it was honestly like a culture shock a little bit because it was just like complete opposite of what I freaking known.
Mhm.
Like in Houston, not only is the whole security system different, like I didn't need an ID to get into school. I didn't have to have a clear backpack. I didn't have to wear a uniform, but my whole schedule was different because they have block schedule out there. They do 8 classes a day out here.
Mhm.
My brain was hurting, girl. I couldn't do it. Like I've never learned that way. Like when I grew up out there, like even from elementary school, they have block days. And so like when I moved out here, it was a big adjustment. So I'm not gonna lie, like I dropped out of high school and I moved to Dallas for a little bit. And then I came back. When I came back, like I really kind of had like a little intervention because I knew that I was kind of like not making the best choices to like get by. And like my caseworker was like, girl, like if you don't get into school, like you're not gonna ever, you know what I mean? And I had till like 21, right? 22 something to like lock in the school stuff. So I was
Mhm.
like, okay. So I got into school and like I said, it was a at your own pace high school, like one of those ones that like isn't like a real high school, but it gives you the
Yeah.
high school
You
credit.
have
You know what I mean?
modules and knock it off out on the computer and yeah.
Yep. And I went and it was cool because they did have like you could pick to be in the morning session or the evening session, and I would do the evening session. So I would get there at like 10, 11, and then get out at like 5 and then go to work. You know what I mean? So I eventually finished, but I definitely had to like want to finish because like
Mhm.
I'm telling you, when I came out here, the schools were like, I couldn't do it. And then everyone was so bougie and rich. And like I was like, bro, like I don't like have like one pair of like nice anything, you know what I mean? And it was like
Yeah.
very like different. And then I walk and talk different than, you know what I mean? So like definitely high school was like a little bit of a challenge. College got easier because when I got to college, it was kind of like a clean slate. I didn't know anybody and nobody like knew me as like, oh, like Foster or anything like that. And
Mhm.
like in high school, everybody has cliques, you know what I mean? Like everybody knows each other, especially if you're from that city, like everybody knows each other from like middle school, elementary school, like, you know? And I never had that. Like I never had people that I was like, oh, I've known this girl since like elementary school, you know? I don't have that. So like when college started, like everybody doesn't know each other. And it was like really nice because I actually got to make friends for the first time that like were like regular normal people, you know? And it was really cool. And like to this day, like college has been like a really good like experience for me.
Good. It sounds like you had to come to it in your own time. Like if somebody would have told you your sophomore year, you have to do this right now, you weren't at that place. But once you got to that place, you just knocked it out. So that's great. Awesome. Allie, I know you mentioned that you were really young when you got removed, but you were in school at that time. Did you have absences or did it impact your school during some of that until you got to a stable placement?
Honestly, no, I was always in school. Like there was no other place for me to be but school. And that was kind of like my safe haven, actually.
Yeah.
I really turned to school and I always felt like an oddball because I never got along with people my age. It was never about friends. It was mentors. What can these people teach me? Like, I don't know why I just kind of looked at adults as, you know what, like I'm going to listen to you because you're giving me something that these kids have no idea, like what I'm going through. And like, I need somebody to lean on, somebody to hear me. And I was not interested in making friends, really. I need mentors, forget the friends. So that's just kind of, and even to this day, that's still how I am, except that I have a couple of girlfriends that have gone through similar situations. So it's easier to relate. And, you know, like there's no judgment with anybody. We all walk a different path. So I made sure my ass was at school all the time. There was no, I got to go to school and then I got to go to cheer after this. And if I didn't do cheer, I got to go to dance. And if I didn't do dance, I don't know. It's just, I had a routine. So, but I was not like an A student or anything like that. Like I was smart, but I would just write in class because I've always journaled since I was literally like 8 years old, always just wrote about, you know, my day and different things. So I was just kind of like that weird, quiet girl in the back. Like nobody look at me, nobody talk to me, you know, just leave me alone, and just always daydreaming and stuff, like same old thing, new school year, you know.
Mhm.
But high school, I graduated with honors, actually.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
It's just because, I mean, I felt like school was the only way out. And
Mhm.
I did know that I would get my school paid for. So that was, you know, my motivation. Like, I don't want to be anything like my family. I love them and, you know, thank you for all the experiences. I'm the type of person that I can look from afar and, okay, I don't want to go down that path. Like, I need to go to the right.
Mhm.
So I I don't know. I just kept myself busy with school. My favorite subject's always been writing and always speaking out. I'm that person that's quiet, but then when she talks, it's just like really strong. I
Mhm.
remember a time in class, there was a question the teacher asked, like, do you think the government should help assist, you know, families and this and that. And, you know, and they're like, oh, and it comes out of the taxes and don't forget and blah, blah, blah. And all the students are like, no, 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 because I went to the North Side schools. So they're more, you know, their families both work jobs. They have all their siblings, you know, full homes, whatever. And then I was just like, this is my time. This is my time right here. So I literally stood up and I was like, look, y'all don't know me, but I am a child that is actually on the other side. And y'all, you know, getting assistance from the government helps kids like me. Okay. And I guess I kind of put myself out there in a way, but you know what? Like, I guess they needed to know because I'm pretty sure that these children are sheltered and they didn't have to deal with their cousins, you know, being taken away. I'm not saying all of them, but from the school that I went to, Warren, yeah, that was very rare.
Mhm.
So I would speak out when I felt like I needed to, but I liked to stay in my circle because, you know, my loyalty runs deep and I'm not just trying to be friends with everybody.
Yeah. So what is your major? What are you majoring in?
Communications with a minor in political science.
Great. Sounds perfect. Perfect. So let's talk about support systems. So as you guys were navigating this and even navigating transitioning into college, what would you say as far as support systems? Who did you have? Did you have people that were those big mentors that really stick out in your mind along the way that really helped you get where you are today? Whichever wants to go first, Allie or Michelle.
Okay, I guess I'll go.
Okay.
So the first person I came across was Miss Norma. Um, I had left my house because it was just very chaotic, and you know, I've accepted my family the way that they are, and I just choose to watch that from a distance because they suffer from alcoholism and addiction. And I really just needed to pull myself away. I felt like once I turned 18, I kind of got a little bit of a cold shoulder because, you're not getting money for the kid anymore. And, what is this kid doing? And let's get her up out of here. And I'm just kind of like stuck in between because where do you go and what do you do? Because I ain't got a dime in my pocket so I had got into it really bad with my 40-year-old stay-at-home uncle. And he put his hands on me and I said, you know what? I'm done. I'd rather go couch surf and figure out my life than sit here and be mistreated because you are going to be here for the rest of your life. I got a way out. And you know what? I'll see my way out. So I ended up going to Miss Norma because I was doing bad in college. It was a very rocky time. And I went to Miss Norma in this meeting. That's when I first met Michelle. And I basically told them, I was like, I think this is going to be my last time seeing y'all here because I'm gonna get a ticket and I'm going to book it. Like I'm out of here. I got to go start over. I was thinking go to Colorado and, I've had a couple of friends go and just, they say the way out is just to leave. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that. And, I told Miss Norma, like, yeah, I don't think that I'm going to come back to school. My grades are horrible and this and that. And she was like, no, we're going to help you. Mind you, it's like a week before, school's about to be let out. And how we did a whole 180 in 1 week, I have no freaking clue. And then I met Michelle that day and her roommate had just left. And so she offered me the bed. And I was like, oh my gosh. In tears because I didn't think that, it's weird. I was driving down University Way and I was like, you screwed up, dummy. Like you're done. And this is going to be your last time as a college student and blah, blah, blah. And you got to explain to Miss Norma because I just felt like I owed somebody some type of explanation. I just didn't want to leave like that. And so I was able to get into contact with the right people. So she helped me with getting into the dorm and then connecting me with the Through Project, which was able to give me my own apartment as well. And me and Michelle live like a couple doors down from one another. So it's very great for safety purposes. Like I don't feel like I'm alone. And aside from Miss Norma, my mentor that the Through Project assigned me was Miss Tina Young. She has been like a mother I never had because me growing up, I always had to be a mom to my mom because she couldn't be a mom. And so I always had like, some parental characteristics to me. That's why I always kept my siblings in line because once I left school, they were like, okay, we're done too. We're not going to do this no more. And that's exactly what they did. They stopped for a little bit. My brother's going to get his GED soon. And my sister, she stopped for a little while because of before COVID happened. She was like, oh, I'm done with school. And I'm like, girl, are you freaking kidding me? Like, what are you doing? And she ended up getting back like a whole year later and stuff. So I'm really proud of her right now. She goes to follow up though. But I kind of knew that I was the reason why these kids are getting up and going to school because they see their older sister going and we got to, like little ducks and stuff. So anyway, that was besides the point. Miss Tina, she was able to be my mother when I didn't really have anybody because when my grandparents adopted me, it wasn't like hugs and kisses and love. They didn't tell me they loved me until I left the damn house. And, now that they see me, they're like, oh my God, we're so proud of you. We love you. And I never got that growing up. So I guess I kind of always sought that in, my teachers and my counselors. And, why am I in school freaking bawling my eyes out in the principal's office and, things like that, just because I didn't have peers to lean on. And also that's not something that they would understand, rather gossip about.
Yeah. And yes, Norma is amazing. So she's referring to Miss Norma Davila at A&M San Antonio, and she is so great and such a great support for our youth that are looking to attend college. She does a lot at Cafe College. So look to her. She does a lot of GED prep and she works at the Fate Center at A&M San Antonio, and she will bend over backwards for our youth. And we are so thankful for everything that she's done. And the Through Project as well, like we're so appreciative that they got you guys here today, but then also for the resources that they offer in the community for our young adults that are really needed, because there is a gap, like Ali, you were talking about, once you age out and, what's next, there seems to be that gap. And I know the Through Project is really helping to try fill that gap for our youth. So thank you for sharing that. Michelle, what would you say who were your supports or mentors along the way that kind of helped you out?
Okay, my biggest support to this day is my caseworker, and I got really, really lucky with that, because I'm not gonna sit here and like brag on caseworkers and act like most caseworkers are good caseworkers, because I know a lot of foster youth who would call for months and not get answers, who would just get placed randomly, like couldn't get anything resolved, couldn't get their medicine dealt with, couldn't like anything. So not all of them are great, but mine was absolutely amazing. And I'm not gonna lie, like we got along at first, because you know what I mean? Like I was kind of like stubborn when I was younger.
Oh yeah, there's that little bit of a power struggle, and that you have to build that trust in a way, right? You have
Yeah.
more people coming in and out of your lives, and you have to build that
Because
relationship.
before my caseworker, there was not an adult that could tell me what to do other than like maybe my grandmother. And that's because my grandmother was like never a bad person, you know? But no, she really, because growing up, like I was real stubborn. So like she would never tell me what to do. She would be like, look, you could do what you want to do. But she'd be like, if you do this, this is the outcome. And if you do this, this is the outcome. And she was like, do what you're gonna do, but I don't want to hear nothing. You know what I mean? And I really think that that worked, because you're not telling me I can't make my own decisions for myself. You're just telling me like what happens if I do, which I can respect, because I don't feel like I'm being told what to do. And you don't feel like you're like trying to boss me around, like whatever. Like I don't know. She kind of grew on me for real. And she's the one who told me, like, helped me get into school, like in Alamo the first time. Cause I didn't even want to do like I did, but I didn't. Like I was honestly really scared to go to college, because like I said, like I didn't go to high school and I knocked out my credits in like 3 months. I did not really learn how to write. I did not really like know like all the math stuff. Like I had to take refreshers when I got in college, because my scores weren't up to like, what they were. And there was like a lot of times my first semester that I had to go to tutoring and like literally cried writing essays, So like I really think that if my caseworker wasn't like on me so much about like doing something with myself and going to school, like I really probably wouldn't have gone, because I didn't know what I wanted to do at the time. Like, and I was really nervous about it, if we're going to be real. Like, and I'm glad that I've done good and that like I've stuck like through it. But yeah, without her, like there was nobody else there kind of like influencing me to do anything with myself. Like people would just be like, oh, like, yeah, she's a little hood rat, like kind of like my family, you know what I'm saying? But it's crazy, because that same family that like always like talk so much like whatever are all like, oh my God, like she's doing so good now, you know what I mean? Trying to add me on Facebook and stuff. And I'm like that's crazy. But
they're proud of you in their own way. Yes,
maybe maybe, but I don't know, like growing up, like especially because like half of my side of like my family, like a lot of my aunts and like people like were my stepdad's family, and they never liked me because I wasn't his biological. So I really never, even before care, had like support from that side of the family. And then like after getting in care, I didn't talk to my mom for years till after care, because a lot of stuff went down, So like it's not really like I had my mom for a while. And I do have a sibling, and I'm not gonna lie to you, like we were really close when we were younger, but we got in a fight a couple years back and we haven't talked since. So like I don't really like, you know what I mean? And like now as an adult, like I really didn't have people growing up. Like I didn't have a lot of family that like were there for me. And like I, even before this last time being taken away, I've been taken away multiple times, and I never stayed in one spot because we were always moving around when I was younger, now for military reasons. And so I never got to have those people that like I said earlier, like a lot of people grow up at least in the same freaking city and are like, oh, I have friends on this side of town or this side of town or at this school. I didn't have that. Like I moved around so much that like like it's not a big deal when you're younger, but when you get to like high school and stuff, you're like, I literally have no friends. And then the friends that I do have are like friends that I've met, like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
like,
you're always the new kid and trying to find where you fit and what
yeah.
cliques are which. And yeah, that's a
And
hard.
right now I do have, like Ali said, like homegirls that are like actually good people, actually doing something with themselves, not getting in trouble, like that I can have fun with. And I know like are gonna be there like when I need them. And I have Miss Norma now. Like Miss Norma's really everybody's mom. Let me tell you
It
something.
is, yes.
Love her. And I actually knew her back in like 20 something from BCFS. And I worked at the Fate Center before she got hired because I was the one who came up with it, not to whatever, but the little acronym.
Yeah.
And she
No,
got
brag
hired like a
about
month
it, girl. Brag about
after
it.
me. And I was like, I know that name. And she walked in and I was like, yeah. And she was like, and I was like, yeah. So like it's a really small world. But you know what? Like everybody's really good people. Like the Fate Center is like a big family. I've met like a lot of really good friends. Like a lot of students like have become like friends with too. And like you get to meet people that have, like Ali said, like similar experiences. And when we have our events, like people are really open. Like we're not like shy with each other anymore at this point. You know what I mean? And it feels good like knowing that you can talk about certain things that if you were with other people, it would be weird if you talked about. Do you know what I mean? So
And
like,
just hearing you talk about when you first started college and how scared you were. Now, when you meet, in your role now, when you meet that freshman that comes in scared, like, I don't know if I can do this. What better person to be there to tell them, look, you can do this. Trust me, there's resources here. They will help you through it. You can do this. I mean, how reassuring would that be for somebody to have someone who's like, trust me, you can do this. If I
oh
can
no,
do
I
it, you
brag
can do it.
so hard because I didn't even know any of this stuff existed when I was in high school and like going through the system. All I knew about when I was growing up was TLPs, which are transitional living placements. And let me tell you something, them things were real hard to get into. And you had to be like 16 and up, and they really wanted like 17 and up because they're like, this is for people who are about to age out, you know?
Mhm.
But
There's
there's
a
only
big
like
application process and an interview.
4
and
in
all of that.
Texas, right? 5 maybe.
Mhm.
Yeah, and the process to get in, ridiculous. And then like there I don't know about now, but the shelters that I were in that connected to TLPs were ghetto. All of that process to still live in a Bad Girls Club episode. Do you know what I mean? And I'm just like, that's crazy. And as an adult that's actually gotten to like utilize these resources and meet people that like put me in contact with other resources, I never knew that existed growing up. So to be able to share that with like foster youth who are still in high school, like we give tours to facilities, we give tours to high schools, we give tours to anybody that comes in and just wants to like know information. I've even done like the PALS Youth Conference. One of my coworkers, I was like, girl, you're gonna love it here at Tamusa. Next semester, she's working here, she's at school here. And I'm like, yes, because the rate of students that are foster youth that actually go to college is like 2 or 3%.
Mhm.
And
And
it's
then it's
crazy
even less
because
than
it's
that for
like,
how many finish, right?
yeah, and it's like, what? Like they're paying for it and they're paying you money, like full FAFSA, plus all these
Mhm.
other resources. Like,
Yeah, we got to get the word out there, get more foster youth to take advantage of that money. Definitely.
yes. And it's
Yes.
like more than just like the money. Like I know like for like a young high schooler, they're like, oh, like money benefits, like that's the main incentive. But it's a good incentive because a couple years down the line, they're gonna be like, bro, like I'm really getting a degree. Like I'm not stuck in my life right now, you know?
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both so much for being here and giving us your time this evening. And before we go, if you could give one piece of advice to a youth that's currently in care or looking at aging out, or to like a CASA advocate or someone that is trying to be that mentor or that voice for the youth, what advice would you give them? What can we do to help the youth? And what advice would you give the youth?
I guess I will. So my advice would be, well, honestly, this is just the way that I think. break the statistic, break the generational curses, because what we go through or what we went through was never our fault. And you have to make it out, because I feel like with this system, we're not meant to break out of this. Because by the time we're 18, you're either homeless, pregnant, or in prison or jail, whatever you want to call it. And like y'all said, only 3% of us go to college. And like you said, less than that actually graduate. And Michelle's actually going to be graduating really soon. So, she's already breaking generational curses. And, like when you surround yourself with people that get it, it only lifts you up. So you have to look towards your resources, because this is your only way out. And for the families that are looking to adopt and, take a foster child under their wing, my advice would be to be very patient, because we really are diamonds in the rough, and we're not just like, regular kids. There's just something different about us and special, and we're a little bit more outspoken, and you don't know what you're gonna get today. And I guess it really is just to have an open heart and an open mind, and just trying to be there to guide this child on the way to their success, their career, their journey.
Thank you so much. Yes, that's great. The social environment that you put yourself in, it really does make a difference. It does. Yes. Great.
You gotta surround yourself with people that get it. So
Mhm. Yeah. Michelle, what about you? What would you say?
For foster youth, I would say start asking for help when you're still in the system. Like, I know that sounds crazy, but I really do not feel like facilities, caseworkers, like they don't tell people about all this stuff. They're just like, where are you going to go when you turn 18? You know what I mean? Which makes a lot of foster youth feel like they have to go back home,
Yeah.
which is where they were taken from in the first place, which kind of makes the couple years that they spend in care a waste of time. You know what I mean? So like, if we were to start telling youth and like educating youth, like, you're not just going to get like the PALS money, the little $1,000. You can get UTV, you can get a full FAFSA, you can get help with housing, help with finding a job, like all this stuff. And then all the little things that y'all pay us for. Cause I know I did like the little Connect Ed thing with BCFS, and I got paid like good money doing that. And I just had to show up, you know? And like they have opportunities for that. They have opportunities for food and clothing, like SA Threads. Like there's a lot of places that they do not tell you about. And there's even places specific for, women with children, or women with kids, or, women who were abused, or women that were trafficked. You know what I mean? And they just do not be telling people this. And so I feel like people get out and have no idea where they're going to go, and do think that they just have to be homeless or go back home. And it's like, that's not like a good thing. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if we started telling youth about like all these things that they could potentially do, they would be like not as scared about their future, maybe act better in placements, maybe like, you know what I mean? And for caseworkers and CASA workers, like Ali was saying, I would just say like, be like a little understanding. Like, I know it's hard because we be like bad as hell sometimes and like stubborn, but I feel like it's one of those things where we're literally a product of our environment. And if that's all that we came from, like, we were never shown to be like calm and gentle and like, oh, like not get frustrated when we don't like understand something, or when we don't understand, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. And especially like, caseworkers, I understand that they have like a lot of like kids on their caseload, especially nowadays. But like, if you join the profession to help kids, like you should want to help kids no matter like if they're not going through like something good, or like not in a good like place at the moment, if that makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sticking with them through the ups and downs. Yeah. And I think your advice to foster youth about asking questions, I think is also great advice for us as the professionals, is we need to start talking to our youth about that earlier, and not just talking to you guys about it, but maybe providing the pamphlets or taking them on the tours, things like that. So they see that it is actually a real thing, instead of just telling them over and over and over again. I think sometimes actually taking them there, showing them the application, that maybe that's something on our end that we can be mindful of and do better and do sooner. So thank you both so much for being here. We really appreciate it. You guys are amazing stories, and we definitely wish you the best of luck. And I hope to see you around.
So,
at the
Jen,
Faith
before
Center.
you wrap it up, can I
Yes.
say something?
Mhm.
So, you know, I was in the foster care system. I run CASA these days, and, you know, and you both are absolutely brilliant. And we've just been listening to you, and there's been all conversations going on with my leadership team behind the scenes. CASA is going to set up a youth council. I cannot wait any longer when we have brilliant young people like you talking to us. And my invitation to you is come and talk to me more about it, and let's see if you can be our founding members of our CASA Youth Council and through.
Oh my God, I'm getting chills.
Okay, I love you both so much. You've been so moving to me listening to you. School was my escape. Michelle, just keep rocking that house. And those
would
nails, I don't know how you do
absolutely love
anything, but they're
to.
fabulous.
I'm
But-
gonna cry right now. Like,
Oh, well, this is what you do for us. Your
Yes.
voices, getting that communication out. Just brilliant, the pair of you. Thank you so very much. And please, we will set this up. We'll talk to you offline, but thank you. Just from the bottom of my heart for everything you're doing. And thank God that you have the voices that you are. Sorry, Ali.
I just get so emotional with these things. Like, you know, it's just like, gosh.
You are these, you are the unicorns that we need. You need to help us increase that 2 and 3%. I'm in the middle of a PhD and I'm flipping old, y'all. So I just got back to school, and it is a way out. And just love you both so much. You are brilliant. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Courtney, Levity from Through, if you're watching, thank you for bringing us such wonderful people, and come talk to us. And I'm very serious about that.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am. Email us. I would love to. I think we could definitely make a difference in Texas.
I think you could. They
And
need
even
you at
to
the
our-
legislature.
The youth that we work with currently that are in care, I think hearing from youth
Right.
that are, you know, in college now makes such an impact. They can hear from us adults all day long, but hearing from you guys really makes a difference. So thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, ladies. You're
It was
awesome.
nice to meet you guys.
Bye.
And I think, was Blair going to do the closing, or are you doing the closing, Angie?
I don't know. Blair, are you with us?
I am here, but Angie, you're more than welcome to.
No, go ahead, girl. You set all this up. I'm just bouncing in and out with my funny voice. You go ahead.
Well, thank you all so much for being on our panels today. Thank you so much for everyone who was tuned in and listened to us tonight, or if you take the time to watch this later. We are just so pleased that to be able to bring these voices into your world for just a moment and have you just think a little bit more perhaps about how our kids in the foster system are experiencing the world today, and what you can do with your voice and your resources to support them, whether that is your time in perhaps becoming an advocate with CASA, perhaps becoming a mentor with Through Project, or volunteering in many other ways that would help in our foster youth. Or with your financial resources, we of course always use those dollars to support our mission and to move the needle as much as possible in positive ways throughout the whole system. We have a vision of being a positive, influential force to change this system for the better. And we want to do that in any way possible. So thank you all. If you have any questions or want more information about CASA, please reach out to us and we will do our best to get whatever you need. So thank you so much, and we will see you soon.